Remote work can expose communication gaps and that lack of trust between team members. A lot of companies have moved away from remote work because it became dysfunctional, but it wasn't so much a people problem. It was a process and operational problem. See, when you set people up into a remote environment where they're slightly disconnected, a little more isolated, and you don't have good communication, trust, good systems, you're going to have bigger gaps. And DISC behavior science can close that gap. So let's take a business that moves half of their workforce into flexible work. Some of that remote schedules, they have positions that can go off site for a couple days or a day or two throughout the week. Miscommunication is going to happen. Where are they today? I don't see them, so the work isn't happening. They said they would do that, and I haven't heard back from them in an hour. You can see where the trust is starting to erode, and the communication that used to be there when they were in office is now becoming more conflict. And it's because when you're home, when you're isolated, that starts to fill with assumptions when you have misunderstanding of each other. So, what I want to review today is the virtual preferences of each disc work style, and you can see, oh, that's why they didn't respond, or oh, that is why me and this other person don't get along, or if you're already back in the office, that's why that didn't work. Because remote work can actually be super successful for deep work time, focus time, when you just got to get stuff done, that flexible work arrangements. You can keep working parents and other people with obligations at home in your organization, but it only comes when you understand their work style and you also build a team up by understanding one another. So let's go through a few virtual preferences per work style to start to move you back to remote work, or at least flexible schedules in which your team thrives in that flexibility versus an energy drainer. Let's begin with D. D wants short and to the point type of meetings. They don't want these hour-long meetings, or say if you get something done in the first half hour of that hour meeting, end the meeting. So when a meeting is just like a conversation flow because people are isolated and you have a high I like me who likes to talk in the meeting and talk about our dogs and our kids, and they want results, right? They're focused on the goal. So when a meeting drags out like that, they start to check out. They start to work on other things. You can see them disengaging in their cameras. They're not really there for the meeting anymore. So when you talk about virtual preferences, a D, they want it short, they want it sweet, they want it to the point. So something you can do in meetings is the three foundations. The first one is the meeting's got to have a purpose. If it doesn't have a purpose, if people can't identify the purpose of this meeting, you shouldn't be having the meeting. The second one is agenda with time slots so that you keep the momentum of the meeting moving in specific areas of the topic. You know that we like to solve problems. We like to go on tangents. We like to start to go off into these black holes of everything that we should fix in our operation. Keep the time slots so that you can keep people on time. If you need to diverge into another meeting in the future, or two people that keep discussing things that don't matter to anyone else in the meeting, they can have a separate meeting there. But having time slots per topic on your meeting agenda helps a ton because it's less personal. It's not a D saying, hey, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Hey, that doesn't pertain to me. It says, hey, we allotted 10 minutes for this topic and we're hitting like 15 minutes. Let's move on. These two people can have a conversation outside of the meeting, right? It's not personal. We all committed to this agenda and this time slot. So first one is have a purpose. Second thing is have those time slots around certain topics and sections on your agenda. The third thing is action owners due dates when you leave the meeting. Have you ever been in a meeting where like you have this long hour meeting, all this discussion, we disclose all the potholes and problems in our organization, and then the meeting just ends because that was the scheduled time? It seems like a waste of time. D's want results, right? So you want action owners, next steps, goals before the next meeting, that type of stuff all lined up by the end of the meeting. So make sure that you save time on your agenda in that time slot to address what you want for results for the next meeting. And D's love that, right? Can you see the forward momentum, right? They're fast movers, they're results driven, so you're feeding their energy. So D's want short, to the point type of meetings when they're virtual. Now let's talk about virtual preferences for I's. I's are our talkers. I'm a high I. And they want opportunities to chat. They want videos on because they read body language really well. They read those micro expressions to say like, Kelly, it looks like you might have some questions, right? They want people to have a voice, so cameras are going to be important to them. Now, I think it's very important in a remote type of culture that you establish that on the agenda before you schedule the meeting way ahead of time. Cameras on, or cameras are okay to be off, because even me as a social bunny, sometimes like if I have one meeting, I don't want to like get all dolled up for the day, or maybe I'm just not having a day where I want my camera on. It's okay to do that, but when you do that consistently, you start to disengage eyes, right? They want that social connection, and remotely that can be difficult. So cameras on for eyes in certain meetings, but make sure that's expected and established ahead of time. You can put that right on the agenda. They also like frequent chats, right? So even though I might be doing phone interviews in HR a couple days a week, those aren't people I'm connecting with. I'm talking to candidates, but I'm not connecting with them. So I might need some chat time, right, over Teams with people, but that can get distracting for other people. So when is that a good time and when is that not? Because I don't want to be interrupting other people's deep work focus time. So that understanding with eyes that says, hey, I'm unavailable, right? You can use the little color coding mechanism within Teams chat to say available or not unavailable. Eyes need to understand to respect that. So if one of my coworkers I see is unavailable, I shouldn't be chatting them, right? I'm going to respect their deep workspace. And then when I see that they're green again, I'm going to go check in on them. So between the video on, established and expected ahead of time on certain meetings, and then some chat parameters, you can feed the energy of an eye in a remote workspace. Now let's move to S's. So S's need clear expectations and consistency. So this a lot comes down to operational workflow and process workflow. So, because S's like to support different parts of the operation, that means pieces of information need to be within systems of the operation. So, say an S wants to help out between sales and customer service, right? There's somewhere in between that. Well, if you're remote, you're not going to see these people as often. You're not talking to these people as often, which is fine. S's can get really good deep work done, but they need information in the systems to actually do their work. Dysfunction comes in when your operational workflow doesn't have datas and details. So S's might be waiting on a salesperson to input information so this next person can do their job. But if the salesperson doesn't put information in the system, this next person just thinks they haven't done it yet. So you can reduce conflict and increase communication by using the systems in place. Usually, when I see companies move to a remote workforce, they don't have their systems and workflows cleaned up. And when you can clean up those process steps, who owns what, who puts what in the system, a lot of that conflict goes away. In many organizations, they have a saying that says, you're only as good as the information in the system. But again, that needs to be a conversation that's had so we can support not only everyone that's working remotely, but especially S's who might be in between supporting different roles. And then let's move on to our C's. They like data and details, so that goes along with S's, right? The more information you can get in the systems, the clear, consistent programs and systems that you're using, right? If the more systems you use, the more confusing this can get for S's and C's. Uh, the more systems and programs that you have, the less D's and I's are going to use, right? So you want that consistency of main programs you use in your operation. C's will be really good at putting information in the system. So check the system first before you start chatting up and filling up the inbox of C's because they already put the information in the system. C's also want time to prepare. So if you have a meeting come up and you're like, hey, let's just meet after this and discuss it right away, C's need time to prepare. They don't like to take risk. They want to get into the data and details and information and next steps before they start to speak. So if you want the most value out of the C's, if you want to support them virtually, give them time to prepare and they're going to do an amazing job. This also goes for maybe virtual one-on-one meetings that you're having with a C. If you're going to blindside them in a meeting with new information, they might not respond accordingly or you might not get actual information out of them. So the more time you can give to prepare for a C, the more you're going to get out of that conversation. So you can see that each work style had slightly different virtual preferences, but they weren't extreme. They didn't go out of your way, adding a ton of more work to your day. What they're doing is they're utilizing systems, cleaning up your operations, and communicating between each other more effectively that everyone's going to gain more time, more time to produce, more time for mental energy through the day because they're not draining it on all the broken blinkers within your operation. Clarity around how do we communicate through chat, through video, through email, through our systems, which one. So when you're talking about disc behavioral science, you're talking about human behaviors, but you're also talking about operational workflow. Where in your process are you wasting more energy than it's giving? And when you start applying DISC to remote workforce teams, you start to see remote teams work more collaboratively. You start to see work arrangements and this flexibility actually be effective. And when you apply DISC, not just in assessments and training your people, but in the integration and implementation within your operation, it's not just a behavioral tool, it's a workforce strategy.